Good morning and welcome to today's AM Minnesota program. We are going to be talking about the beef industry today because, in case you didn't remember, May is Beef Month. My guest in the program today is Royalee Rhoads. She's the Director of Industry Relations for the Minnesota Beef Council. Good morning, Royalee.
Good morning. How are you?
If I had a hamburger in front of me to eat, I'd be doing better.
Hey, beef is perfect to eat this month. It's perfect to eat all year long.
Oh, yes. But it seems like it tastes better if it's grilled and it's on a nice summer day or spring day, doesn't it?
It does. And it's going to be a beautiful weekend to be outside to grill.
Boy, we've been kind of shortchanged. We've had a little bit of nice weather and we've had a lot of miserable weather, but this is what you can definitely call grilling weather now.
Absolutely.
Well, Royalee, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do with the Minnesota Beef Council on behalf of all dairy and cattlemen in the state of Minnesota. Director of Industry Relations.
I am, yes. I always say I get the best of both worlds. I actually work the retail and food service side, so I get to work with grocery stores and the meat markets here in Minnesota to help them promote beef on behalf of our producers. And yet I also get to work with some of the chefs, and so we incorporate more beef onto their menus. And then I also say I get the best of both worlds just because I also do the producer communications, so I get to work with the producers who are delivering this great product. So it's always fun to do both sides because I can share their story with the chefs and retail people, and the retail and food service people share what they're looking for in beef, and I can share that back with the producers. So
it's almost
really
like,
kind of nice.
Yeah, you're on both ends. You're with the producers that are producing the beef, and then you get to work on the other end with the end retailer.
Absolutely, yep. I get the best of both worlds, so it's very nice and
now, is part of
collaboration.
Is part of your job when you're working with those chefs developing new ways to serve beef, and do you get to sample what they develop then? Do you need any help?
Hey, I'll take all the help I can, you know. You always want to try new beef recipes and see what else they can do different with beef, and because we all love a good beef anytime, good steak.
Royalee, after the market break, we have that coming up in about 2.5 minutes. We want to talk more at length about the beef industry and what it means to Minnesota's overall economy and some of the events that you've been helping organize. But before that, we should probably just review one more time if people aren't real aware of what the beef checkoff is and what it's all about.
Yes, the beef checkoff is federal mandated, and so for every head of beef that is sold, the producer pays in $1 to the checkoff. 50 cents of that stays within the state, and 50 cents goes to our national team, and that money is strictly used for promotion of beef, consumer education of beef, and some research. So it's a great way to promote an awesome product that our Minnesota beef producers are putting out there.
And you mentioned every time a beef animal was sold. For many years after college, I was a dairy farmer. I didn't see myself as a beef producer or a cattleman. I saw myself as a dairy farmer. But you know what? Thinking about it, I did produce a lot of beef over all those years too, didn't I?
You did, absolutely. The dairy industry gives us a lot of beef. A lot of people don't realize that. They just think it's milk, but it's a lot more than that. They produce a lot of great beef and help to put that on your plate too. So we thank those producers, whether they be beef or dairy, for all the great product they put out there for us.
And then your governing body, sure you have your salaried staff, but the ultimate responsibility of running the beef checkoff and where the different money is invested, that's a board elected by the producers themselves. That's
correct. Yes, we have 16 board of directors that manage the Minnesota Beef Checkoff, and they come from all parts of the state, and they are a great team we have right now, and they give us great direction, and we really appreciate them putting their time in for us.
Well, Royalee, we have to take a break for the markets. When we go back, as I mentioned, we want to talk more about the beef industry, some of the special events that you've done during this May Beef Month, but also talk about some of the events scheduled throughout the summer. I remember I was doing an interview with Ron Eustace once years ago, and he said, it's not like we aren't promoting beef the rest of the year too, Jerry. So we'll talk about some of those things and probably some grilling tips and food safety tips too. But first, my guest on today's AM Minnesota program is Royalee Rhoads. She's the Director of Industry Relations for the Minnesota Beef Council. And Royalee, let's just back up just for a second. I wanted to reemphasize again that those checkoff dollars. It's federally mandated. It's overseen by an elected board, by other dairy and cattlemen. Research, education, and promotion. That's the only way those checkoff dollars can be spent.
That's correct. Yep.
Very good. Yeah. I remember years ago, I was doing an interview with Ron Eustace, and I asked him about something, and there was some controversy going on in Washington, D.C., and Ron's only answer was, no comment. We don't get involved in that sort of thing. We're research, education, and promotion. After that, I had it straight.
Absolutely. You bet. That's exactly what we do. So it's awesome. What
are some of the special events at the Minnesota Beef Council, and maybe sometimes in partnership with a lot of local organizations? I know a bunch of the guys over at the LeSueur County Cattlemen. You do some partnership things with some of those local cattlemen groups, too.
Absolutely. We do a lot of different partnerships. Some of the things we've done recently is we did the Minnesota Monthly Food and Wine Show back in March, and we actually partnered with 2 culinary programs here in the cities, St. Paul College and Hennepin Technical College, and they each designed a recipe for each day, and one was a chimichurri sauce, and the other was a brandied cream sauce, and they sampled them with the petite tender. And that got served over 4,000 attendees throughout the course of the weekend for the Food and Wine Show. And people just raved about it. They loved it. And for us, it showcased an underutilized lean cut of beef, something that most people think of. We all think of the ribeye. We all think of the sirloin. But not everybody thinks of the petite tender. So that was a really nice addition. We've also...
Well, before you move on, Royalee, the petite, wasn't that like the Flatiron? Wasn't that developed through research funded by Minnesota cattlemen, a different way of using that beef animal? Normally, the lesser value cuts go into hamburger. Is that the one? Was that the petite one of those two?
It was. It's what we call the BAM cuts, which are alternative methods of using the different cuts. And the research was all done on the chuck and the round. And you're right. I'm sure with you growing up, the Flatiron didn't really exist out there when I was growing up, and that was one of the cuts that came out, as well as the petite tender. So it's kind of nice to see some of those cuts being utilized out there now too. So very cool. They did a lot of research on that, and a lot of those cuts have become more popular now. So
well, the bashers here in Faribault, they always have a Flatiron special every Saturday night, and the Flatiron Steak, hugely popular. And you think, well, here's a cut of meat that used to be hamburger. While it's valuable, it's not quite as valuable as a steak.
Exactly. And so we got to use some of those cuts that you're correct, that used to go into hamburgers. So it's kind of nice to see some of those out there. Absolutely.
All right, I just wanted to bring that up. Move on with some of the other events that you've done.
Absolutely. So another one we did was the University of Minnesota every spring does an Ag Awareness Day on the Minneapolis campus. And that's something they try to expose those students and teachers to what is the ag industry, and all the commodities come in, and we all have a booth and do interaction. We also, most of us have animals there. So this year we answered questions about how beef cattle are raised, because there's a lot of questions about that nowadays, and the health benefits of beef. And then we had a fun little contest going on. You could take a selfie with the baby calf that we had there, and then post it to our Facebook page, and for a chance to win some Von Hansen gift cards. And some cute pictures. So make sure to come visit our Minnesota Beef Council Facebook page, and you can see some of those selfies if you scroll down. And people enjoyed it. They loved it. It was a beautiful day, and they really enjoyed that small calf. So another one we do is we just finished up Urban Ag Day. We do that at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds, and we work with the Dassel-Cokato FFA chapter along with the Morris FFA chapter, and they coordinate and invite St. Paul area schools in, and they bring out 1,300 third graders out to the fairgrounds on May 11th, and they learn where their food comes from and how it's raised. And those kids are so cute. They had so much fun. And so we shared with them how the Beef Council, how beef is an excellent source of 10 essential nutrients. So, have you ever heard the word ZIP? ZIP is an acronym we use for what essential nutrients come from beef. And the Z stands for zinc, the I for iron, and the P for protein. So remember, zip. So then we asked the kids, what's your favorite cut of beef? And we got some great answers. Spaghetti with meatballs, tacos, hamburgers, even a few steaks. And then, what every kid loves to play, Simon Says. So they did jumping jacks, clapped their hands, we had them show their muscles. And then we told them, guess what? Beef helps you do those things. And the kids said, what? And so the kids learned that zinc helps them to build a healthy immune system, that iron helps them their body use oxygen so they could do more jumping jacks, and that beef is an excellent source of protein and builds their muscles. So we had them show their muscles again. And then we threw one more out at them, and the vitamin B12, and what does that help with? Brain function, so they can have a better day at school. So then we told them, remember, Simon Says, beef has zip. And they thought that was really cute.
Well, did you guys come up with this all yourself, or did you have the help? What a great idea to develop a program like this that the kids could really relate to.
Well, the FFA chapter started it, and then they brought the commodities in to teach. And then the West Central Cattlemen's Association comes in, and they actually grill cheeseburgers for the kids for part of their meal. And so we incorporated beef that way, too, and it's a great partnership. The Morris FFA chapter partnered with the cattlemen, the West Central Cattlemen, and partnered with them to come in and do their cheeseburgers. So that was kind of a nice partnership, too, to incorporate more beef into the program. So.
And the acronym ZIP, I'd never heard that before. Zinc, iron, and protein. Even I can remember that.
Exactly. It's a quick way to remember it. So, we're all so busy. So if you can have those little things, it's easy to remember what beef will do for you.
One of the things I've noticed so far, Royalee, that, years ago, we never worried too much about communicating with consumers and educating kids. But that's a big emphasis nowadays, not just the Beef Council, but a lot of the other farm groups and commodity organizations I work with.
Absolutely. Most people, are only about 2% of the population anymore farms, and so many people are very disconnected from that, and they just don't know how that was. How is their food raised? And so we need to communicate that to them, and they learn things that maybe aren't so truthful, so it's great to have them come out and talk to the producers or talk to us and find out how is their beef cattle really raised and what do we do. And a lot of them are surprised when you tell them 98% of beef farmers are family-owned, and they're like, I thought they were corporate farming. You're like, no, they're family-owned. They're just like you. They have families, and they produce a great quality beef for their family as well as yours.
It's really rewarding, isn't it, when you get to visit with kids or even regular consumers and you start telling your story and all at once you can see that the light goes on, that they understand it. That's rewarding, isn't it?
It's very rewarding, and we're so happy and so proud to just share that story of our beef producers with the consumer as well as themselves, so that people do know that story and do know who is out there producing their beef for them. So, yeah, it's a great part of our job. We enjoy it a lot.
I help with ag in the classroom, do a number of presentations, and we go into third grade classes. And I think it's important to reach out to the kids, because many times if you go with, high school kids or college kids, their ideas have already been formed many times with incorrect information, but it's much more difficult to educate them on what's going on when they already have their mind made up compared to the kids.
That's correct. But we do our best to put the correct information out there for everybody, all of our consumers. But you're right, when they're young, it's always nice to share that story, and you'll never know what impact that'll have later in life for them. They're like, wait, no, the Beef Council told us this, or the beef farmer told us this, and they're the one that raised it. So that they're the one doing it, so that's what it is. So it's very nice.
You mentioned this program with all the kids was at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds?
That's correct, yep.
So what are some of the other things that you've been doing so far in May? And, of course, in case you hadn't noticed, May Beef Month isn't over yet. Today's only the 20th,
That's correct. Exactly. We're just barely halfway through now. So this last weekend, the Minnesota Monthly Magazine puts on an event called Grill Fest, And we all know grilling season is here. So Grill Fest is an event that attendees come and they taste their way through the favorite grilled foods and test the hottest grills, gather recipes, and learn how to barbecue like a pro. So this year we partnered with Dr. Ryan Cox and the University of Minnesota Meat Science team, and we grilled skirt steaks seasoned with a cowboy spice rub. And so they got to taste that, and they were all like, oh, this is great. And then we had little packets made up of the spice rub that they could take home with them so they could try it, and the recipe for the rub was on there. So once they finished the packet, they had the recipe to continue using it. So they thought that was pretty cool. And then we have a game called Beef Roulette, and it's a roulette wheel with beef cuts on it. And then you place your bet on your favorite cut of beef. We ask them a question about beef, and then we spin the wheel. And if it lands on your favorite cut, you win a grilling spatula, a really nice grilling spatula. It says Minnesota Beef on it. And everybody wanted to play, and they're like, I want to play the next round. I want to play. And we're like, there's plenty. I'll play. So it was really fun. And so then that opened the conversation about what is your favorite beef cut? Oh, hey, here's a beef cut chart that you're welcome to take home. Try some of these other cuts. And it tells you how to cook them on there. And then we also had other grilling guideline charts, so whether you did gas or charcoal, and you could look at what kind of beef it was, how thick it was, and whether you're doing charcoal grill, and it tells you how long you should cook it. And so I thought that was pretty cool because we all grill the same thing over and over, so let's try something different. And then they also got a cutting board with a steer on it. So that was a really hit. We were quite a popular booth.
Hey, it's fun when you're somewhere and you're the place to be that everybody wants to stop by.
Exactly. You love that.
You mentioned grilling. Maybe we should, before I get too carried away, go into some of the grilling tips, both for a pleasurable eating experience, but also food safety. I know I've been accused sometimes grilling hamburgers and turning them into hockey pucks.
Oh, yeah.
What a horrible way to waste some good hamburger.
That's right. So so when you go to pick up your hamburger, one thing to always remember is if you're going to go run errands after that, then you need to take a cooler with you because that meat shouldn't be out any longer than 30 minutes to get it home. So from their case to home, no more than 30 minutes. If you're going to do more errands than that, then make sure to put it in a cooler in the car. And remember to refrigerate or freeze as soon as possible when you get it home. And then the other thing is when you get home, think about, maybe you did pick up that 3 pound of ground beef, but how about portioning that out? Oh, you use a pound for this recipe or a pound for that, and portion it into the right size before you put it in the refrigerator or freeze it. And then you can freeze beef in its original packaging up to 2 weeks, but if you want to do it in a longer storage, wrap it in heavy-duty aluminum foil or place it in a freezer bag and removing as much air as possible. So some of the, we all throw that hamburger in there and then we forget about it, but really for different beef cuts, there's only so long you should keep them. For, let's take example, a steak. You should only keep in your refrigerator 3 to 4 days. Otherwise, you should freeze it. And that you can freeze for 6 to 12 months. Ground beef, on the other hand, you should only refrigerate no more than 1 to 2 days and only keep it in the refrigerator or in the freezer 3 to 4 months. So each one's a little bit different. So make sure you check out beefitswhatsfordinner.com, and it has those guidelines on there. And then when you defrost it, make sure you defrost it in the refrigerator, not on the counter.
Yep, the refrigerator. Then if there were to be some bacteria in there, it's still refrigerated on the outside versus on the counter. It gets really warm on the outside then, and then it could grow. That's
correct. And you want to cook your ground beef to an internal temperature of 160 degrees. And that's the perfect temperature to cook it to, and then you can eat it without any worry.
And if you aren't sure, the juices kind of run clear, or the sure way to know is a meat thermometer that I mooshed off of one of the commodity groups at one of the farm shows I was at.
Yep. You always want to. It's always best to use that meat thermometer. So you can pick them up anywhere. So it's a good thing to always have in your arsenal, whether you're cooking beef or any other protein. You should really use a thermometer to know the temperatures.
And when you're taking them out to the grill, or even if you're preparing hamburger for some hot dish and you're going to brown it, make sure that anything that's touched the raw hamburger, or steak too for that matter, shouldn't touch the finished product too, right?
This is correct. Yep. You want to use two different, like let's say you make them on a plate and then you put them on the grill to cook. You want to get a new clean plate to put the finished product on, because you don't want to cross the fresh product with the cooked product.
And maybe wash your hands in between too.
Absolutely.
See, I've been paying attention all these years.
You have. You have, definitely. And also, the other thing to remember is that there are 29 lean cuts of beef out there, too. So you can enjoy beef all the time. So.
And how you're preparing a steak or a roast versus a hamburger is a little bit different, too, because you don't need to worry about maybe something contaminating the inside of a steak versus the ground beef or hamburger that you've made into a patty, right?
Correct. On a steak, the inside of a steak has never been exposed to the air, so it is fine. So you can grill that steak and leave it rare inside because you've made the outside hot, and anything that would have been there is gone, and the inside has never been exposed. So you're fine. Where the ground beef has been ground, so you want to definitely cook it to 160 because all of that has been exposed to the outside world. So.
You want to hear a funny experience? Our son is in grad school out in Pittsburgh, and I went out to visit him on a weekend, and so we stopped at this steakhouse, and I was ordering a sirloin, something like that. They said, "How would you like it done?" And I said, "Medium well." Mm-hmm. And all at once, Stephen gave me a kick under the table because the waiter would not take an order medium well at a steakhouse.
Really?
Yeah. That apparently you don't go to a medium well. It has to be a touch rare on the inside. They won't. Apparently, that's how they do it out there. Anyway, the long story short is a certain son was embarrassed of his uncultured dad.
You know, I say it's a personal preference, and whatever you like
is what is okay.
That way.
When I talk to him next time, I'm going to say Laura Lee said I'm okay liking a medium well steak.
You do that. I'll back you up on that because we're all different. We like it. Our steaks all different. So
all those different tips and things. You mentioned the website. Now, is that on a link to the Minnesota?
So you can also go to the Minnesota Beef Council website, which is www.mnbeef.org, or you can go to the national site, which is www.beefitswhatsfordinner.com.
Is there some other things, too, we should mention, Laura Lee? We only have about 4 minutes left. I guess I've been doing too much talking.
Oh, no, you're fine. Well, what do you think the top cut is for grilling? What do you think that is?
I would think a T-bone or a sirloin.
Actually, it's ribeyes that dominate
really?
In volume. Yep. And then strip steaks are the second number, whether it be Memorial Day, Father's Day, 4th of July. Those are all different. For Father's Day, T-bones are number 2, so it's always kind of cool to know that.
So those are more popular than the good old-fashioned hamburgers?
Yes, for the holiday season it is.
Oh,
but
okay.
Ground beef accounts for 51% of the total beef sold in the summer.
Oh, special events, it's those cuts, whereas if you look at the whole thing, then it's hamburger. Okay.
Right. If you look at the whole thing, it's 51% hamburger, but, you know, you're grilling a hamburger for dinner on a Tuesday night or maybe on a Friday night. But you know what? When it comes to those special holidays, we want to throw those nice steaks on there.
Didn't a prime rib come in somewhere there, too? For special occasions or special events? I know a lot of people that their tradition around Christmas time, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day is prime rib.
Right, and that is for more of a winter. Yeah, for Christmas it's definitely a prime rib everybody likes, but for the grilling and summer cuts, it's typically the steaks. Yep. But who doesn't love a nice prime rib, a little bit of horseradish on it, you know? It's always a good thing to do. And then everybody thinks you're cool doing too.
I don't know. It's hard to beat good old-fashioned ground beef or hamburger. There's just, I mean, there isn't anything more versatile than ground beef, is there? Whether it's a hot dish or a taco or a regular hamburger. I mean, we put hamburger in so many different things.
We sure do. It's such a versatile product too. And roasts are coming back. They're becoming popular again, and with the crock pot coming back. And I can remember growing up, that was Sunday dinner for every Sunday was a pot roast, and nothing better than that, let me tell you.
Yeah, especially if it's prepared right, like in a crock pot. Cook it slow. Nothing's worse than roast beef that's dry and tough.
Yep, exactly.
and it's all in preparation, because you could take the same roast beef, prepare it this way, it's not so good. Prepare it this way, and it's fabulous.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just so you know, Americans prefer their beef for the grill. Almost 69% of all the grillers in America say they grill beef 69% of the time versus chicken or pork. So that beef product just sizzles really well on that grill.
I like to, no offense, I know you work for dairy and cattlemen, but I like a little fish once in a while, and I like a little turkey, and I like a little pork. And
it's good to have variety in your life, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, only about
beef product is just wonderful.
Only about a minute left, Royalee, but mention those websites, minnesotabeef.org. If you've got any questions on anything, would like to meet dairy or cattlemen, you guys have a really nice website at Minnesota here. I guess I haven't gone to the NCBA's website, but I'll bet they got a pretty neat one too.
Yep, they do, and they even have an interactive butcher counter on it, so you can go in and look at the different cuts. It'll tell you the best way to cook them and give you all the nutritional information. So you can go in, pick a cut you want to try, and then the other thing is once you pick that cut, you can say, give me the recipes that include that cut, and it will bring up every recipe that includes that cut. And you can also find that on our website, too.
And if you don't have a computer or you aren't comfortable, you have a phone number, and somebody there will answer, consumers or cattlemen.
Exactly. We'll help you out with that beef product.
All right. Thanks, Royalee. We have to run for the news. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Have a good day.
That was Royalee Rhoads, Director of Industry Relations for the Minnesota Beef Council.